Welcome to History and Future of Mostly Higher Education. Hi, welcome. I'm here today with my friend Albert Beveridge, one of the country's truly distinguished constitutional lawyers. You can find out more about his biography on our course website. But today I'm going to talk to him not in his role as a lawyer, but in his role as a student, because Albert has gone back to get a PhD in American history. And part of what we're going to be talking about today is the future of higher education, the future of the humanities in higher education. And I'm going to ask you, Albert, why would you go back to earn a PhD in history after having had such a distinguished career?
Well, it's partially because I think if you don't continue learning, you start to die. So I didn't want to do that in the late 60s. I decided that I wanted to cut back on my legal career. I still represent a few clients. And I just finished a tour with the George C. Marshall Foundation.
Oh.
And I've been there 7 years, and I've developed a strategic plan, and then I did the second strategic plan for 7 years, and I got it past the board, and then I said, hey, I don't want to do the second plan, so I said I had something else to do. So the reason I picked getting a PhD is I still am the general counsel of the American Historical Association, and I've worked with many very distinguished history professors. And so I felt very strongly of their influence, and I said, well, why don't I see if I can do what they do? And so I went to get my PhD.
Maybe tell us a little about what you're getting your PhD in, what aspect of American history.
All right. It is my advisor, because I go to Johns Hopkins, and Johns Hopkins has the old-fashioned system where you are admitted by one professor. It's the old German system, which is unusual. If you had to go through a committee, I'm not sure they ever would have taken me. But this gentleman was a historian of American business, which is not what I really planned to get into. But when we were discussing the dissertation, I had to do the regular 2 years leading for a master's. And I said, well, why don't we write about American businessmen who were at a high level, president of their corporation, who come into the federal government at a high level. So I selected 4 of them, and then started away. And finally, about 2 years ago, I picked the first, most difficult one first, which was Robert McNamara. And my advisor said, Albert, I've got to see something. You haven't given me anything in the last 3 years. I've got to see something. So I said, okay.
Every good advisor says to a PhD.
So anyway, so that I said, okay, Lou, I'll give you something. So I said I've got the first roughly 3 chapters on McNamara, and I sent him 160 pages. And he said, Albert, I think we should stop with McNamara. You do not have enough years in your life to do the other 3 people. So that's where I am now, and I'm finishing up. I hope to get the dissertation in this September.
Well, I hope you do too.
I do too.
That's great. What does it mean to you to pursue a PhD? Why is that different from a whole career that you've had in law school? For our students out there, what does higher education mean, and especially history? What does that do in terms of your way of thinking about the world?
Well, it isn't so much what I think about the world. I put it in very personal terms. I'm basically a believer, and I think, I don't know all his work, Erickson's 3 stages of men and women. First stage, when you're young, you have to learn the basics of your culture, you have to study to get a job, and all of that. Then the second is you do what you're going to do. And I personally think that, of course, what you learn technically at the university level helps you in that. But I think it even helps you, for example, if you take courses that seem irrelevant. I was looking the other day at the biography of Martin Dempsey, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He has a master's in English literature, quotes Yeats all the time. I think he is a better chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for this, so that I don't think the humanities, and I'm specifically addressing humanities, I think it's relevant, when you are engaged in your professional conduct. But the real time it pays off, I think, is when you stop working. I mean, we're living longer and longer now, and people work beyond 65, but if you retire, and I retired about 68, you hopefully have 15 to 20 years left. And how are you going to fill that time? And to me, what I learned in humanities, it gives me an opportunity to make that hopefully productive. I'm able to teach, even courses like adult education, which are not for credit, but they're quite popular here in Washington. And so that the humanities background I have and that I'm getting, I think really allows me to live, I don't know what they call it now, retirement years, but productively, and it challenges me.
Actually, our Twitter hashtag for this course started out lifelong learning, and we've actually changed it to life unlearning, because part of what I think is important about learning and going back to school, especially this time, and for our students in this class, is you don't just learn new things, you help to refresh, to be new, to unlearn some of your patterns and become receptive to new ideas as the world is changing very fast. Instead of being one of those people who puts a line in the sand and says, I'm not going to learn anything new, I'm going to criticize everything new. I think it keeps you fresh and vital and engaged in an interesting way.
Well, I have to tell you one thing. When I entered the first year, I had to take a course because your advisor tells you basically at Hopkins what to take. And this was cultural theory for historians and social theory for historians. And we didn't read any historians. We read the French thinkers like Lacan and Bourdieu and Foucault and all those people. It was very, very difficult for me. And at the end of the year, I was talking to my advisor, and I said, Lou, I figured out why you did this. And he said, why do you think I assigned those courses? I said, every graduate school starts by tearing the student down. It happened in law school. They humiliate you your first year. It happens in medical school. It happens in architecture school. It happens in business school. And then they build you up. He says, no, Albert, that wasn't true at all. I just wanted to show you what's happened in the 15 years since you were at school and how history has moved on. So I believe him, I think.
Although you were reading a lot of deconstructionists, so I think you may have been right about that. So we asked one question of everybody, and I'm going to ask you that question. Who's your favorite teacher? Whole life, who's your favorite teacher, and what things did you learn from that teacher that you continue to feel is just part of the way part of your new DNA, part of the way you live your life now? Well,
I have to go to two teachers, and I had a sort of crisis when I was in the 9th grade, and this was a Latin teacher who, and my parents were divorced actually at that time, and I really didn't have anybody to appeal to, and I was in a boarding school, and he sort of built me up, strangely enough, by just doing Latin translations with me. And I don't know what it was about. It was nothing to do, he didn't say buck up or give me any psychological help at all. All we did was translate Latin, Virgil. I don't know why, but it made a huge difference to me. Now, the one teacher that was at the same school who really has affected me my whole life is a teacher who taught a musical appreciation course. He introduced me to classical music. Now, I am totally tone deaf. In fact, when I entered the school, if you had a soprano voice, which I did, you had to try out for the choir. I was so bad After he finished going through the scales with me, he said, "Albert, you never have to try out again." So, but I just absolutely love this music appreciation course. And that is, I mean, I go to a musical event, a classical music event, maybe once every week or two, and it has been really one of the great releases for me. So his name was Stanley Shepard.
Thank you, Stanley.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stanley.
Shepard, right?
He did a hell of a lot for me. Yes.
That's great. Is there anything you'd like to add?
The one thing I didn't get in is in preparing for whatever you call this period of unlearning, as you say, after you've stopped your work. You have to think about that before you do it. My point is, because I started thinking about this graduate school long before I quit, and I think you have to prepare. And there are a number of other individuals, friends of mine, who have done other things. But they started, let's say, in their mid-50s, thinking about this and preparing somehow, whether it's writing articles or whatever it is, so that they might have the opportunity. Because you just don't say at 65 or 70, hey, I want to be this. And you start thinking about it earlier.
Well, it's kind of probably true at every point in our career. There's some kind of preparation that then leads you to a major career.
That gives you opportunity.
Thank you so much. It was just
my pleasure,
wonderful.
Kathy.
It's really
enjoyed
inspiring talking
Well,
to you. Thank you so
I
much.
enjoyed it. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.